This is the Horse Radio Network. This is episode 166 of Horse Tip Daily, a different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you one day at a time. Today's tip is sponsored by Equestrian Collections, for the whole universe of equestrian shopping at your fingertips at a price you can afford. Enjoy today's tip. Hello, everyone. Glenn the Geek back with you from Lexington, Kentucky, and welcome back to Horse Tip Daily. Well, today we have somebody new on the show for you, a new expert. His name is Dr. Brian Parrott. He is a veterinarian from Massachusetts. He received his Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree from Tufts University School of Veterinary Medicine in 1987. Since graduating from veterinary school, he has been an equine practitioner on Boston's North Shore. In 1991, he founded Parrott Equine Associates. Dr. Brian's professional interests include sports medicine, lameness, podiatry, reproduction, and dentistry. A native of Rockport, Massachusetts, he grew up riding and caring for horses, and he enjoys polo and fox hunting in his free time. These tips were taken from episode number 82 of the Stable Scoop radio show. Dr. Parrott is our resident veterinarian over there for Helene and I at the Stable Scoop show. He comes on about every 3 months and gives us some helpful hints and advice on various topics, and we thought what we'd do is include some of those on the Horse Tip Daily show over the next couple of months. If you want to listen to the whole show where this tip came from, go to stablescoop.com, episode number 82. And we'll get to that in just a moment, but first we have to speak about Equestrian Collections. Most people think about Equestrian Collections in relation to riding attire and tack, but they also have a complete selection of barn equipment, barn supplies, medical equipment, medical supplies, and things that you would normally associate with other companies. They have at Equestrian Collections. And we're getting into that fly spray time of year, the springtime, when you're going to need to be replacing some of the barn items in your barn and also stocking up on fly spray and anti-fly stuff. Well, stop over to equestriancollections.com now for all of your barn fly spray needs for the spring, in addition to all the riding clothing and show clothing that you can find at equestriancollections.com. Now on to Dr. Parrott from the Stable Scoop radio show.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I heard it's really beautiful in Lexington. Not sure what it's like up
65 today. Beautiful.
It's just about 60 here, too, in Rhode Island. But it's definitely spring. So I think one of the things that's on most people's minds are spring vaccines. And I know sometimes, depending on what barn you're in, some horse owners just go with whatever the barn recommends. So, Dr. Parrott, I'd like your opinion on what you think is appropriate for spring vaccines. What's essential, what's optional, and when should horses get them?
Hi, Helena. It's sure good to talk to you again. Vaccines across the board. There are some that are pretty much standard across the North America, United States, and then there are vaccines that can be used in regionally or target areas. And essentially, the spring vaccines have been labeled so because there are diseases in which we cover that are vector-borne, meaning they're carried by bugs like mosquitoes and things. And so the spring vaccines usually include those, but it's a good time just in general, people are getting back to their activities with their horses and they want to take them to horse shows and to move them around and expose them to a lot of different things, including other horses. And preventative health care prior to all that activity and to the season is really, really helpful to the horse to prevent disease. So the ones that are usual and standard that are recommended by the American Association of Equine Practitioners pretty much across the United States are a tetanus shot yearly, encephalitis vaccine, and there are 3 subtypes of encephalitis vaccines, and the most common in the United States, other than very small pockets down in the southeast United States, and probably the southeast and southern United States, are equine Eastern equine encephalitis and Western equine encephalitis, two forms, serotypes that are distinctly different, but are carried by mosquitoes in their region. So the vaccines have been developed so that they're in combination. The other subtype that is less frequent but does occur in the southeast and south is the Venezuelan subtype, and occasionally we'll get mosquitoes carrying that subtype. And so in those regions, I usually add a Venezuelan equine encephalitis vaccine, and those can be bought as a 3-in-1 or in 2-in-1 type of vaccine. The other is rabies, pretty much rabies across the board, except if you're in a state that is rabies-free, needs to be given. And in the Northeast, rabies came back, at least 15 years ago, and there's certainly in the South and the Southeast United States. So rabies is a good one to do at least annually. And then the one disease that has really come into exposure probably 7-8 years ago is West Nile virus. It's really spread across the United States fairly rapidly, having started in the east in New Jersey, New York area. It moved up to the northeast and then spread to the south and southeast and across the United States now. So those are the four: tetanus, encephalitis, rabies, and West Nile virus that are pretty much standard across the United States. So do you have any questions about those four?
No, I'm taking notes.
Oh, great, good. Now there's a lot of vaccines out there, and of course, some people are in an area that a lot of them need to, or all of them need to be done. But
well, rabies sounds pretty. I think when you said rabies is back for the last 15 years, I never actually thought of rabies as going away. I know that some of these diseases, they go in cycles based on the hosts that carry them. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
But rabies, I would never think to not vaccinate for, because it is such a, it gets the most press. It's scary. It's, easy to transmit.
It's such a deadly disease, and it is a disease that crosses many mammal species, so all mammals can get it. And of course, it's contagious from animal to animal or mammal to mammal.
Right.
That it has been eradicated in some regions, and of course, it's not present at all in Great Britain. So there, they don't even vaccinate. So we were rabies-free in most of the New England states for years, and it was not highly recommended to vaccinate horses and large animals for that prior to the new onset of rabies. But now it has become very infrequent, but it's certainly considered endemic. And we do have rabies, so therefore, all mammal species that there's a vaccine for that has been tested on those mammals, we're vaccinating those mammals with it.
We had a big farm in Pennsylvania all through the 90s, and it was bad there. And any one of us who has had a farm where we had a rabid raccoon in the barn, I just shot it and we had it tested, and of course it had rabies, and they came out and they picked the horses out where they even thought that the raccoon was in the stalls there. And, all those horses had to be quarantined what a pain.
The raccoon was actually in the barn?
I was in the rafter right in one of the stalls above one of my ponies.
Well, how would a rabid, other than an all-out bite, is that how a raccoon would transmit it to a horse?
Yes, it needs to be basically direct contact. The organism is extremely labile, which means very sensitive to heat and so temperatures and dryness and stuff. So it really needs to outside of the animal system. So the organism doesn't live in temperatures outside of the normal temperature span of a living organism or a living mammal.
Okay, so once it's exposed to air and light, it starts
so
to. It doesn't.
Dead rabbit animal essentially 24 hours after its body has gotten cooled off, there's no organism alive in that body, so it could essentially be in contact. Theoretically, it could be in contact.
Boy, between this conversation and some of the questions we have coming up, this is going to be a very
this is going to be the gooey.
It's going to be the gooey gross Ask the Vet show.
Ask the Vet episode.
Now we did. I think what they had us do was the pony that the horse or that the rabid raccoon was in that stall. They couldn't be sure, so that the state wanted that one and the stall next door. Yeah. Those two horses had to be quarantined then.
Yeah, that's right. They quarantined and observed for a specific amount.
Yeah, it was a long time too, if I remember right.
Yeah. It can be several, especially if they've been vaccinated before sometime in their life. But if they've been non-vaccinated, then it's a shorter period of time. But there are mandates that are made by the Board of Health and the state and federal Board of Disease Controls that have looked at the disease quite closely. So it's best just to follow their recommendations. And it's a giant hassle. Is there anybody with dogs and cats knows that if an animal falls out of its those species, the dogs and cats in most states are required by law to be vaccinated. Well, large animals and horses in general are not. So you do not have to vaccinate your horse, but we highly recommend it because the same quarantine procedures are going to be placed on them if you did get an animal bite, you didn't know where it came from, especially if the horse, if there were wild animals around.
Well, while we're on gory gross stuff, can I ask a quick question related to this, Helena?
Sure.
Yeah.
We also came in contact with a couple of foxes that had come down with mange. Is that something that can be transferred to a horse?
Yes. Well, if it's sarcoptic mange.
Well, let me tell you, this thing looked like a creature out of a horror movie with all its hair gone and covered in scabs, and had killed about 5 of our cats. Never ate them, just killed them all. And we actually were finding dead cats, and we went up. Our barn was tough on cats. We went upstairs in the barn, and this thing came out right beside us, and it really freaked me out because it was like something out of a horror movie. Oh. And we found it a day later, dead on the property. But what a nightmare that was. And you sure it had mange?
In mange is pretty characteristic. The animals that have it are if you can get up close enough to visualize them, or through a pair of binoculars, you can sometimes see it. But it's very classic. They have this they're losing their hair. Their skin becomes very rough and rugated, so that it looks thickened and wrinkly. And it's hyperkeratotic. They're producing a lot of cells, so there's a lot of dry, flaky skin.
I'm telling you, it's something out of a horror movie, Dr. Parrott.
A good part of their body will be completely nude, and then another part may have a tuft of hair here or there.
Yep,
and
exactly.
They're always thin, and they always look poor.
That was it.
Poor doers, and it'll go through, and it's one of the diseases that definitely controls the wildlife species, because when it gets into a den or through a group, of course, these animals live in groups, and so it'll go through a whole lot of them and wipe them out, because it just causes them to be such poor doers. It just zaps their.
Now, is that the same thing? Do they have to actually bite the horse?
Well, you said there were 2 kinds, right?
No. With mange is a skin parasite. It's a mite that burrows its way under the epidermis, under this top layer skins, and gets into the dermis and migrates there and inflicts a tremendous inflammatory response. The body tries to kill it. It can't. And it just lives there, feeding off of debris and stuff that it's locked into. And it's spread by contact. So essentially, if an animal lays on the ground and rubs its hair and skin, it can actually shed some on the areas that it's laying down. So some animals, like dogs, is fairly common. They'll go into a fox den that had mange, and then they'll have it all over their face and their head. So it lives around the surroundings that the mangy animal lives, and so it can be picked up fairly easily. And both so humans are not it's contagious across the board. Most mammals can get it. Some get it less or more than others.
How do they treat it?
People can get it. Oh, it's treated by usually topical medications, but one of the best ones has been ivermectin, the horse dewormer. The dewormer that we use on all mammal species for one parasite or the other, but injections of ivermectin have been very, very helpful to kill off the organism. So it's become easier to treat. Once upon a time, they used to have to use tremendous, very irritating topical baths and scrubbing and things that caused a lot of irritation. It was very slow to heal the animal or person, for that matter. So now it's much easier to treat.
Well, thank you to Dr. Parrott and my co-host Helena B. from the Stable Scoop Radio Show. We're going to be playing more clips from that particular episode as we go down the line here. Dr. Parrott's great at explaining the technical veterinary stuff so that even we understand it. And as I said, if you want to listen to the rest of that show, we went through a number of topics. It's episode 82 of the Stable Scoop Radio Show at stablescoop.com. And you can find Dr. Parrott at parrottequine.com. That's Parrott equine.com. Well, thanks again, everybody. We appreciate you stopping by. And don't forget, you can check out all the other great shows on the network at horseradionetwork.com. I'll be back again tomorrow with another new expert and a different horse tip. Until then, stay safe, everyone.